Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take complex data sets, cut through all the noise, and really deliver the core intelligence you need to execute at the highest level. Today, we are focusing laser-like on the engine of every organization, sales, and specifically, we're looking at that one crucial moment in any deal. The point where it either moves forward or it just dies.
That's right.
We were talking about the difference between a paltry 3% close rate and a powerhouse 83% close rate.
And that gap, that 3 versus 83%, it represents this vast chasm of lost revenue for most companies. It's a gap that's not caused by a bad market or, a weak product, but by one simple step, a mandatory step that most sellers, even really skilled ones, they just fail to do consistently.
So our mission today is to do a deep dive into the data that proves this. We're exploring a huge study from the sales experts, and it's all based on this meticulously kept sales journal. We're talking over 23,000 individual sales pitches.
Yeah.
And we're going to distill the single most important action for sales success.
Yeah.
You have to always ask for the order.
And this isn't just, some selling guru's opinion. This is decades of tracking behavior and outcomes. The journal itself goes all the way back to 1989. So when you put it all together, you really get the gold standard for understanding what drives sales.
Okay, so let's unpack the data collection for a second, because for you, our listeners, the executives, validity is everything. We are talking about 25 hardcover books, 50,000 pages of handwritten notes.
I mean, the scale is just incredible.
It is. So when we say 23,806 pitches were documented, every single one was logged against key variables.
Exactly. This wasn't just a simple count. Every pitch tracked the essentials. The date, the client, the value of the deal, how much preparation went in, the immediate result, and this is critical, the long-term outcome.
Did they stick around?
Did they stick around? Did they buy more? Did they refer someone else? And when you have this massive, clean data set, the patterns that emerge, they aren't suggestions. They're basically organizational mandates.
And when all that data was put together, the fundamental truth that the sales experts found was, it's almost shocking in how simple it is. So walk us through that core revelation.
So what really stands out is the absolute power of intention. When the seller asked directly for the order, used clear, unambiguous language to ask for the business, they won that business 83% of the time.
83%.
Mm-hmm.
Just by finishing the conversation. That one number should rewrite every sales training manual out there.
But now contrast that, right? Contrast that huge success rate with the other scenario. The seller does a whole presentation, they build the value, the client seems interested, but then the seller, they hesitate. They don't ask. They wait for the client to offer the business.
And what happens then?
In those cases, the business was only given to them 3% of the time.
3%. So you spend days, maybe weeks, preparing and presenting, and you basically kill the deal in the last 30 seconds because you're afraid to ask the obvious question. That's a huge structural inefficiency.
It really is. And it raises a big question for anyone in sales leadership. If your product is solid, your pitch is good, why does 97% of your chance of success just evaporate if you don't ask?
It's fear of rejection.
Right. It's the psychological burden. The fear paralyzes them at that most critical moment.
We always talk about confidence.
Yeah.
The data here shows that 91% of the time a seller asked, they actually expected to win, and they usually did. But what if a seller is struggling? Maybe they're new or just in a slump. What happens to that rate when their confidence is low?
Okay, see, this is where it gets really interesting. This is pure financial motivation. Even when the seller asked with low expectations, when they went in thinking, I'm probably not going to get this, they still close the deal 9% of the time.
Wait, hold on. So on your worst day, feeling totally uncertain, just forcing yourself to ask triples your close rate compared to staying silent.
It triples it. That 9% is pure revenue that you gain just through simple discipline. And for you, the executive who's looking at the quarterly numbers, the takeaway isn't that you need better training. It's that you need a mandatory process. The biggest loss the study reveals isn't bad leads. It's the untold millions left on the table because the company culture just lets people fail at this one critical step.
Let me just push back on that a little. If asking closes at 83%, what about that other 17%? For the leaders listening, we need to know what makes a good intentional ask still fail. How do we mitigate that 17% risk?
That is a great question. And the journal notes, they actually give us some insight. That 17% loss rate, it usually falls into one of two buckets. First, some deep-seated objection that was hidden during discovery, like an internal political shift or a sudden budget freeze, stuff the seller just couldn't have seen coming.
Okay, so unforeseeable circumstances. What's the second one?
The second is poor qualification at the start. The seller asked, but they were talking to the wrong person, someone who wasn't the real decision maker. Or maybe the client's need just wasn't actually that urgent.
So even the best close in the world can't fix a fundamental qualification problem. It sounds like asking also serves as a final diagnostic tool. It forces the truth to come out.
It absolutely does. It separates the tire kickers from the serious buyers faster than anything else.
Okay, so if 83% is the average success rate when you ask, we have to look at the peak performance. What separates 83% from, the absolute gold standard?
Right. This brings us to a really remarkable case study from the journal, the artist paints line. The rep selling this new product in one territory closed 100% of 374 pitches.
A perfect run.
A perfect run.
100% penetration in a new market. That's almost unheard of. And you're saying other territories selling the exact same product were only getting about 52%.
Exactly. Same product, same price, but a wildly different outcome. And this case study really provides the blueprint. It wasn't just about the act of asking, it was about the environment the seller created leading up to that ask. We found 4 factors that all came together.
Okay, lay them out for us. What was the secret sauce?
First, perfect market fit. The rep did rigorous homework and only pitched clients who had a clear, undeniable need for the product. They got rid of bad leads before they even became pitches. Second, complete and utter belief in the product's value. The seller just had this unwavering conviction they were solving a huge problem. Third, and this is super actionable, they created a powerful pitch that always included 3 alternative offers.
Ah, the choice architecture. So you're giving the buyer options instead of just a yes or no. That reduces the fear of rejection for them too.
Precisely. It shifts the client's decision from should I buy to which one of these should I buy. You've already anchored the conversation around commitment.
Makes perfect sense. And what was the fourth factor, the one that really tied it all together?
The fourth, the non-negotiable, was the iron discipline of always asking for the business. They never ever skipped that step. They treated the ask like a required part of the process, not some optional move at the end. That success wasn't luck, it was a system.
So the real insight here isn't just ask for the sale, it's transforming that act into a mandatory, data-backed organizational discipline. The ask becomes the natural conclusion to a perfect process.
You have to underscore that. For anyone in leadership, this isn't about teaching a clever phrase. It's about designing a process where your salesperson feels a professional requirement to ask. That expectation of success built on preparation is what shapes everything.
We've laid out the data. We've looked at the 100% success case. So now, for the executives and sales leaders listening, we need the blueprint. How do you actually implement this across a whole sales team? This needs to be a process, not just a suggestion.
Right. This is about execution and accountability. We need to standardize the whole process. So asking is mandatory, it's auditable, and it's backed by a really high-quality conversation beforehand. We've distilled this into a practical 5-point framework from the Sales Experts analysis.
Okay, let's walk through that framework. This is how you turn a low-confidence team into an 83% closing machine. What's step 1?
Point 1. Do your homework at the highest level. This is way beyond just knowing the customer's name. Your teams need to be trained to read their target's annual reports, understand their market pressures, know what tech they're using, and find the pain points your product solves. A generic pitch just won't cut it today.
So that homework builds the confidence you need to even make the ask. You can't ask confidently if you haven't validated the fit. So what's point 2? Crafting the pitch itself.
Correct. Point 2. Craft a compelling multi-option pitch. Just like in the artist paints case, you present pathways. Structure your pitch with a few clear options. So instead of one $100,000 solution, you present a $120,000 comprehensive package, a $90,000 standard one, and maybe a $50,000 entry-level option.
Right, and that minimizes the risk of them just saying no to the whole idea. They can just adjust the scope.
Exactly. I see teams struggle with this because they think they're leaving money on the table by offering the cheaper option, but the main goal is to get in the door. You close the deal now, you can always upsell later.
Good point. Okay, point 3 is more of a mindset thing. Expect success.
This is the mindset shift that translates directly into closing. You have to assume, based on your homework, that the deal is already yours, that confidence comes through in your posture, your language, everything. It isn't arrogance, it's just professionalism. When you act like you're just formalizing a decision that's already been made, the buyer trusts your judgment.
And that confidence leads right to the 83% difference maker. Point 4. Ask directly. Can you give us some specific professional language here, not just vague cues?
Absolutely. The ask has to be clear. You have to avoid lines like, what are the next steps? Or do you want some time to think it over? That's just inviting them to stall.
So what should they say instead?
Use commitment-based phrasing, something like, based on our conversation, the premium plan aligns perfectly with your Q3 goals. Shall we get the contract process started this afternoon? Or maybe, to make sure we hit your deployment timeline, I recommend we move forward today. Which implementation date looks best for your team? You're asking for the business, not for permission to keep talking.
That shift from passive suggestion to confident direction is so powerful. And what's the last step?
And finally, point 5, and this is for leadership. Mandate and follow the process. You have to make this discipline stick.
Right. It's not enough to just tell people to do it. You have to enforce it. How does the sales manager audit this?
It needs to be formalized. In your training, in your reporting, if a sales meeting ends, the report has to include the specific closing question that was asked and the client's direct response. If a deal dies without a documented intentional ask, then the sales process was incomplete. It's about accountability.
So you're transforming closing from this risky improvisation into a disciplined, repeatable standard. That's what executives need.
And if we just tie this all back to the core truth from all that sales data, the conclusion is really concrete. If you don't ask, you don't get. Sales success isn't about luck or charisma. It's a measurable result of confidence, rigorous prep, and closing with clear, mandated intention.
So for you, the leader responsible for hitting those revenue targets, the action is clear. You have a mandate for change. Audit your closing metrics against that 83% baseline and make this 5-point closing discipline the standard, starting immediately.
And if your organization needs help standardizing this kind of behavior or, embedding this discipline into your company's DNA, we really encourage you to explore the source material and all the resources over at thesalesexperts.com.
The data gives you the clarity.
Yeah.
The implementation, well, that's the hard work.
And that brings us to our final provocative thought for you to consider as you plan your next quarter. We established that even on your absolute worst, lowest confidence day, just asking for the order gets you a 9% close rate. Given that undeniable floor, what is the actual measurable cost of hesitation of letting your team skip that step across thousands of pitches in a year? That financial leakage, multiplied across your whole organization, is the true cost of not having this mandatory closing discipline. Think about that.